Before diving into this incredible story, consider subscribing to the channel and hitting the bell. Every story here has something to say, and you won't want to miss a single one. Rain fell heavily on the Chicago sidewalks that evening, transforming the streets into miniature rivers. Streetlights trembled in the icy wind, and store windows reflected the shards of a world Lila Johnson had never known. 12 years old, wearing an oversized coat and shoes with holes in them, she walked briskly, picking up bottles and cardboard boxes, hoping to scrape together a few pennies to survive. Her brown eyes, piercing despite her fatigue, scanned every dark corner, every suspicious figure. Lila had learned long ago that the streets are unforgiving. Yet there was something inside her, a glimmer of humanity, an inner strength that even cold and hunger could not extinguish. As she rounded a closed cafe, a dull thud startled her. A man had fallen onto the slippery sidewalk. He struggled to his feet, his designer glasses wobbly, his elegant clothes soaked from the rain. Lila recognized immediately that he didn't belong in this world of concrete and poverty. He was rich, powerful, and vulnerable in that moment. Without hesitation, Lila approached. "Sir, are you okay? Are you hurt?" she asked, her voice firm despite her apprehension. The man, Ethan Crawford, a billionaire known for his financial empire and legendary coldness, blinked in surprise. He wasn't used to a child worrying about him. I think so, thank you," he stammered, disconcerted by the small, soaked figure. Lila held out her hand and, with surprising patience for her age, helped him up. She guided him to a small, open cafe, where they sheltered from the rain. She gave him an old scarf to wipe his face and, with a casual gesture, shared the meager packet of biscuits she had found in a trash can earlier that day. Ethan looked at her, struck by her generosity and courage. A street child, who had almost nothing, had just helped him like an angel fallen from heaven. At that precise moment, something shifted inside him. He knew he had to get to know her, understand her world, and maybe, change his own life. Lila, however, didn't yet know that this rainy evening would be the beginning of a story that would change her life forever. She had just saved a man, without knowing that, in the process, she was saving herself. The next morning, Lila woke up in a damp alley, the memory of meeting Ethan still fresh in her mind. She hadn't expected a billionaire to care about her. To her, the rich were strangers, cold faces she'd always avoided. But that day, everything changed. An elegant assistant, M. Harris, came to pick her up at dawn, holding a small box containing clean clothes. "Miss Johnson? Mr. Crawford invites you to meet him." Lila frowned. "Why?" she asked suspiciously. "I think he wants to help you," Mr. Harris replied with a shy smile. She hesitated, then, driven by a curiosity she didn't entirely understand, she followed him. A few minutes later, she found herself in front of the Crawford Industries skyscraper, a glass and steel tower that dominated the city. Lila stood at the entrance, awed and intimidated. The automatic doors slid silently open, and she entered a world she had only known in her dreams. Ethan was waiting for her in his office. He was immaculately dressed in a tailored suit, but it wasn't his wealth that struck Lila, it was his gaze, attentive and curious. "Welcome, Lila," he said in a calm, almost warm voice. "I wanted to thank you, for last night. You saved me from a fall, but you also reminded me of something important, humanity." Lila looked at him suspiciously. "I didn't do anything out of the ordinary. I just had to help you. Maybe, but this small gesture means a lot to me. I want to offer you a chance to learn and grow. No money, no charity, just an opportunity." She frowned. "What do you mean?" Ethan smiled slightly. "I want you to come work with me. Not as an employee, but to learn. To understand how the world works, how decisions are made, and maybe, one day, use that knowledge to change your life." Lila remained silent, weighing her words carefully. She had learned to fend for herself, to never depend on anyone. Accepting this offer meant letting go of her mistrust and trusting a stranger. And yet, A small voice inside her told her that this might be the first real chance she'd had. Finally, she nodded. Okay. I want to try. But I don't want you to think I'm doing this for the money. Ethan nodded, satisfied. I don't think so, Lila. I think you're exceptional. Thus began Lila's first day in the world of the rich and powerful. Little did she know that this courageous choice would set in motion a chain of events that would change not only her life, but Ethan's as well. She had just taken the first step toward a future she would never have dared to imagine on the dark streets of Chicago. Lila woke early that morning, in a small room provided by Ethan in a secure building owned by his foundation. For the first time in a long time, she had a clean bed, warm sheets, and the silence of the city waking below her. She quickly got ready, putting on the clothes Mr. Harris had brought her, simple pants and a plain sweater, but clean and comfortable. As she went downstairs, she felt the weight of her new world, a mixture of fascination and fear. Every detail, the polished floor, the modern paintings, the windows overlooking Chicago, reminded her that she had entered a universe entirely different from the street. Ethan was waiting for her in his office, steaming coffee in hand. Ready for your first day? He asked with a smile. Lila nodded, her heart pounding. Yes, but I'm not sure what I'm supposed to do. Don't worry. Today you're going to observe, learn, and understand. No pressure. Just watch how things go. Lila's first encounter was with the management team. The men and women in suits regarded her with curiosity and, for some, a touch of skepticism. She felt the gaze of some weighing heavily on her, as if her youth and simple clothing made her seem alien to this world. But Lila wasn't intimidated. She stood straight, answered an awkward question with politeness and a touch of humor, and noticed the admiration in Ethan's eyes. You have a lot of courage for someone your age, and a lot of intelligence, Ethan said quietly. Lila shrugged, feigning modesty. I guess the streets taught me how to survive, how to observe people and understand their intentions. Ethan smiled inwardly. This was exactly what he wanted, someone who could think for themselves, learn quickly, and above all, never be intimidated by appearances. Later that morning, Lila was invited to attend a strategy meeting. She didn't understand all the financial terms or the discussions about acquisitions, but she noticed something else. Decisions were made not only by numbers, but also by courage and intuition. She understood that this world, despite its cold and calculating appearance, needed heart, exactly what she possessed. At the end of the day, Ethan gave her a behind-the-scenes tour of his companies, the control room, the research labs, and the company's historical archives. Lila touched, saw, and felt the energy of this world. She was no longer just a street girl, she was becoming someone who could understand and influence its destiny. Walking back to her room that evening, Lila looked at herself in the mirror. Her eyes shone with a newfound determination. Life had just offered her a chance, and this time, she was ready to take it. But even in this new world, the shadows of her past were still there. The dangers of the streets, the hunger and loneliness had not forgotten her. And somewhere, she knew that the real trials had only just begun. As the weeks passed, Lila adjusted better and better to her new life. Every morning, she left her small, secure apartment to join Ethan and learn more about the business world, while every evening, she returned with renewed energy, but also a weight she couldn't ignore. One afternoon, as she walked through the lobby of Crawford Industries, she saw a familiar figure on the street through the large bay window. Her heart sank. It was Darnell, a boy she had known since her childhood on the streets of Chicago, and who had been her companion in daily survival. He wore a worried and frightened look, seeming to be looking for someone. Lila felt panic rising inside her. She wanted to run, to flee this reminder of her past, but a part of her knew she couldn't ignore the world she'd left behind. Ethan, noticing her agitation, approached. Is something wrong? He asked, his voice soft. Lila shook her head, trying to hide her emotions. Nothing, just someone I know. Later that evening, as she confided her concern to Ethan, she let go. Ethan, the streets, it's complicated. The people I knew there, sometimes they need help, and I can't just ignore them. Ethan looked at her with understanding. Lila, I see what you're going through. And I want you to know that you're not alone. If you want to help others, I'll support you. But you have to take care of yourself too. This conversation opened something up in Lila. For the first time, she felt understood, not judged. But the past was never far away. A few days later, Darnell knocked timidly on the door of her safe house. He seemed different, thinner, scared, but still grateful for everything they had shared. Lila realized that life on the streets wasn't over, it was simply on hold. She decided to help him, but this time with the resources and support Ethan offered. Together, they began to develop plans to provide food, shelter, and a sense of safety for children like them. This experience brought Ethan and Lila closer together in an unexpected way. He realized that his wealth and influence could truly transform lives, and that Lila, with her determination and courage, was more than just a protégée, she was a catalyst for change. But this help would not be without consequences. The old rivals and enemies of the street hadn't forgotten Lila, and some were ready to do anything to draw her back into their dangerous world. Ethan understood that helping Lila also meant confronting these dangers, and that their relationship would be tested by trials far greater than he had imagined. That night, Lila fell asleep thinking about everything she had been through, everything she had to lose, but most of all, everything she could accomplish. The past was there, but this time, she wasn't alone in facing it. The sun had barely risen when Lila walked through the park near the foundation. Even after several weeks in this new world, she couldn't help but wander through certain neighborhoods she knew well, those where poverty and loneliness still reigned. She knew that real life wasn't limited to skyscrapers and luxurious offices. As she walked forward, a high-pitched scream rang out. Lila turned around and saw a dog, tied to a leash, stuck at the edge of a fountain. The animal was panicking, sliding dangerously toward the icy water. The owner, a trembling old woman, was trying in vain to catch it. Without thinking, Lila ran. "I'll take care of it," she shouted, her shoes slipping on the wet ground. She reached out, grabbed the dog, and lifted it with effort. The animal was trembling, but unharmed. The old woman, with tears in her eyes, took the dog in her arms and hugged it. Thank you, my dear, you saved my friend's life." This heroic gesture, simple but powerful, was noticed by a photographer who was passing by. The photo made the front page of the local newspaper the next morning. Chicago's little heroine saves a dog from icy waters. Lila, sitting in Ethan's office drinking hot chocolate, saw the article. She blushed slightly. I didn't think it would be this important," she murmured. Ethan smiled. "Every act of courage matters, Lila. It's not just the dog you saved, but the example you're setting for the city. People see that one young girl, alone, can make a difference. And that shows what you're capable of." For Lila, this moment was revelatory. She began to understand that courage and empathy, even in a world filled with wealth and power, could change lives. And most importantly, she realized she could use her past experiences to inspire and protect those still trapped in poverty. This public recognition also brought a new dimension to her relationship with Ethan. He saw her not just as a protégé or student, but as a true force for change. And Lila realized that with his trust and support, she could go even further. But deep down, she knew her life would continue to be tested. Every heroic action attracts attention, and sometimes, attention from the wrong people. The challenges were only just beginning. A few weeks after Lila's heroic act, her fame grew. Newspapers, social media, and even local TV news programs were talking about the Chicago heroine who had saved a dog, and was now working alongside a billionaire. But with light comes shadow. In the hushed halls of Crawford Industries, a rival of Ethan, Victor Langley, an ambitious and jealous man, watched the situation with a mixture of anger and lust. Victor knew Ethan was vulnerable when it came to Lila. And he intended to exploit that weakness. One evening, as Lila was leaving the foundation to return home, a stranger approached her in a nearby alley. "Do you want to make a lot of money, kid?" he said, his tone sweet but threatening. Lila instinctively backed away, but her instincts and courage took over. She knew that agreeing would have consequences. Soon after, rumors began circulating in the local media. Some claimed that Lila wasn't an innocent street child, but a manipulator taking advantage of Ethan's wealth. Lila felt fear rise within her, but she wasn't afraid for herself. What worried her was Ethan and the reputation of their shared work helping disadvantaged children. She rushed to Ethan's office to explain everything. "Ethan, someone is trying to discredit us. I don't know who, but they want to tear us apart, destroy what we do." Ethan frowned, his anger slowly rising. "Victor Langley. It's his style. He can't stand the fact that I'm succeeding with someone as incorruptible as you." Lila felt a lump form in her chest. She was used to fighting alone, but this time it wasn't just her life on the line. She and Ethan had to fight back, together. The next day, Lila took the initiative to publicly address the rumors. In a local interview, she explained her background, her past on the streets, and her mission with Ethan to help children. Her sincerity and courage touched the entire town. The accusations backfired on those who had spread them, and Victor Langley was forced to back down, humiliated in front of the media and his peers. Ethan, impressed, placed a hand on her shoulder. "You showed incredible courage, Lila. You not only protected your reputation, but you also protected ours and our mission." Lila smiled, tired but proud. She had learned that even in a world of wealth and power, truth and courage could triumph. But she knew there were more challenges ahead, and that her past, her choices, and her future were intimately linked to Ethan and the complex world she was learning to understand. This ordeal had solidified their bond and strengthened Lila's determination to never give up, to fight not only for herself, but for all those who had no voice. In the following weeks, Lila felt a profound change within herself. The dark, dangerous streets that had been her daily life now seemed to belong to another world. But her past was not forgotten. On the contrary, it became a source of strength and inspiration. She knew that as long as she survived, other children like her needed someone to guide them. One morning in Ethan's office, she posed an idea she had been mulling over during sleepless nights. "Ethan, I want to create a program to help street children. Give them shelter, education, a safe place." Ethan looked at her in awe. "Lila, are you seriously thinking about that?" "Yes. I can't forget where I came from. If I had a chance, why not them?" With Ethan's support, they began developing a plan. Lila visited existing shelters, spoke with educators, and listened to the stories of children who had experienced poverty, hunger, and violence. Each story strengthened her resolve. She wanted these children to feel they had a chance, that they could dream and change their destinies. The first step was to renovate an old building owned by the foundation. Lila oversaw the work, chose the colors, and organized spaces for study, recreation, and relaxation. Every detail reflected her past and her desire to create a safe and welcoming space. On the day of the inauguration, Lila stood before the children, her eyes shining, her hands slightly trembling. "Welcome, here, you are safe. You will learn, you will play, and above all, you will believe in yourselves. I know what it's like to live on the streets. But I also know that each of you can have a better future." The children, some suspicious, others enthusiastic, listened to him in silence. And then, one of them, a little boy of 10 named Marcus, stepped forward timidly. "Thank you. I didn't think someone like us could stand a chance." Lila smiled, moved. "You all deserve it. And I'll be there to help you." Ethan watched from the back of the room. To him, Lila was no longer just a protégé, she had become a true leader, capable of transforming the lives of others. Her courage and compassion had bridged two worlds many thought irreconcilable: wealth and poverty, power and vulnerability, hope and survival. This experience transformed Lila from the inside out. She understood that her injuries and experiences on the streets were not disabilities, but strengths. Every pain, every hardship, every night spent alone in the cold had prepared her for this role. She had become a young woman determined to change the world, one child at a time. And deep down, she knew her journey was only just beginning. The challenges ahead would be greater, but she now had the tools, the courage, and the support to face them. Over the months, Lila and Ethan developed a rare, almost familial bond. Every morning, they met in the main office of Crawford Industries to discuss projects and the foundation. But their relationship wasn't limited to work, it was based on trust, respect, and a deep mutual admiration. One afternoon, after a long meeting about the foundation, Ethan invited Lila to lunch in his penthouse. The view of the city was spectacular, but that wasn't what impressed Lila. It was Ethan's sincerity, his ability to listen, understand, and respect her choices. "You've made incredible progress, Lila," he said, putting down his coffee. "Not just in your work, but in the way you inspire others." Lila smiled, a little embarrassed. "I'm just trying." "No, you're not just trying. You're taking action, you're making an impact. And you've taught me something important, that true strength doesn't come from power or money, but from kindness and courage." These words touched Lila deeply. She realized that, for the first time, she had found someone who saw her worth beyond her difficult past, someone who saw her as more than a street survivor. Their bond deepened when Lila decided to share with Ethan some of the details of her life she had never spoken about. The nights spent searching for food, the near misses, the loneliness and fear, everything was finally put into words. Ethan listened without judgment, simply with full, sincere attention. "You've been through so much, and yet you've remained yourself," Ethan said, visibly moved. Lila nodded. "I guess I didn't have a choice, but now I know I can choose who I want to become. And you showed me that the world can be different." This relationship became a pillar of strength for Lila. Ethan was no longer just a mentor or protector, he was a friend, a guide, and, in a way, a family she had never had. And Ethan, for his part, realized that he had found in Lila someone capable of reminding him of what was truly important: compassion, empathy, and courage in the face of adversity. One evening, as they looked out over the city from the foundation's roof, Lila spoke softly, "I never thought I could feel at home anywhere, but with you, I believe it's possible." Ethan smiled, placing a hand on her shoulder. "You always were, Lila. You just needed a place to realize it." At that moment, Lila understood that her past, her trials and triumphs had forged not only her strength, but also her ability to love and trust. Their friendship was now indestructible, a bond that nothing and no one could break, not even the future challenges that awaited them. A few months later, the foundation Lila had helped create began to attract attention across the city. The children she had helped shared their experiences, journalists praised her courage, and even the national media began to take an interest in this young street girl who had become a symbol of hope. One morning, while Lila and Ethan were working on a new educational program, Mr. Harris walked in with a smile and a folder under his arm. "Lila, you're about to be invited to speak on a national television show. They want you to tell your story." Lila felt her stomach clench. Television? The public? The whole nation? She took a deep breath. Okay. But I want this to be for the kids, not me." Ethan nodded, proud of his maturity. "Exactly. Speak for them, not for the spotlight." The night of the show, Lila found herself in the spotlight for the first time. The cameras, the lights, and the audience made her heart race, but she remembered everything she had been through, the fear, the loneliness, the hunger, and most of all, her courage. She began to tell her story, her life on the streets, her meeting with Ethan, and how they had built the foundation together. Her voice trembled slightly at first, but it grew stronger and more confident. Every word, every gesture, spoke of her sincerity and determination. The audience was captivated. Viewers were touched by her courage and vision. Appeals, messages, and donations poured in, allowing the foundation to grow faster than ever. Lila realized that her past, once a source of pain and fear, could become a force to inspire and help other children. Ethan, sitting backstage, watched Lila in awe. He had always known she was exceptional, but seeing her shine like this, touching thousands of lives, exceeded all his expectations. You are incredible, Lila. You haven't just saved lives here, you're inspiring the entire country. This public recognition also strengthened the bond between Lila and the children of the foundation. They saw her as a real hero, someone who understood their world and fought to give them a chance. For Lila, this unexpected success brought a new certainty: she could change the world, one child at a time. And every smile she saw, every hopeful look, was a reminder that her courage and resilience were having a real impact. But despite this resounding success, Lila knew the road wasn't over. Challenges, jealousies, and personal trials were still there, ready to test her strength and determination. She was ready to face them, more determined than ever. One autumn evening, the foundation was quiet. The children had gone home or were asleep in their dormitories, and Lila was busy filing files for the educational program. Ethan entered quietly, a serious but tender look on his face. "Lila, can you talk to me for a moment?" he asked. Lila looked up and nodded, sensing something important was about to happen. They sat down in the foundation's small office, the only quiet place where no one would interrupt them. Ethan took a deep breath. "Lila, I want you to know something I've never told anyone." Lila shuddered, intrigued. "What?" "I consider you my daughter." The words fell softly, but with incredible emotional force. "I never officially adopted you, but since the first day I met you in that rain, you've occupied a place in my life that no one else ever has." Lila's mouth fell open. Her eyes filled with tears. For years, she had dreamed of a family, of a true connection, but all she knew was loneliness and survival. And now, this man she respected so much, this man who had changed her life, was finally offering her what she had always sought: a family. I don't know what to say." She stammered, her throat tight. "You don't have to say anything. I just wanted you to know that you're not alone anymore, that you're loved, and that no matter what the future holds, I'll always be there for you." Lila burst into tears, but this time it wasn't from fear or sadness. It was from gratitude, relief, and love. She leaped into Ethan's arms, feeling for the first time in her life that she had a refuge, a parent, a home. This revelation transformed their relationship forever. Lila was no longer just a protégé or a student, she was his daughter of the heart, and Ethan was her father. An unlikely family, born from an act of kindness in the rain, but strengthened by time, trials, and shared victories. That night, as she looked out over the city from her office window, Lila felt a profound peace wash over her. She had faced the streets, saved lives, inspired thousands, and found a family. Everything she had been through had led her to this point. And now, with Ethan by her side, she knew that no future hardship could break the bond they had created. The sun was rising over Chicago, bathing the city in a soothing golden light. Lila stood on the foundation's roof, looking down at the streets below, reflecting on her incredible journey. She was no longer the street girl wandering alone and hungry. She had become a strong, respected, and loved young woman capable of inspiring and transforming lives. Around her, the foundation flourished. The children she had helped were smiling, studying, playing, and dreaming of a better future. The educational programs she had envisioned were working perfectly, and every success, big or small, reminded Lila how much she had grown. Ethan came up behind her, silent. He placed a hand on her shoulder and smiled. "Look at all you've accomplished, Lila. You haven't just changed your life, you've changed the lives of hundreds of others." Lila turned her head and smiled. "I could never have done all this alone, thank you for believing in me, even when I didn't believe in myself." Ethan gently squeezed her shoulder. "You've always had courage and strength within you. I only helped you see it. And look at you now, you're incredible." For Lila, this recognition went far beyond praise. She saw the fruits of her labor, sacrifice, and resilience. She understood that the past, however difficult and cruel, was never a condemnation, it could become a springboard for the future. As she gazed at the horizon, she felt a mixture of accomplishment and peace. She knew more challenges lay ahead, life would never be simple, but this time, she was no longer afraid. With Ethan as her loving father and children who looked up to her and relied on her, she had found her place in the world. The street girl who saved a millionaire had become a symbol of hope, courage, and transformation. A life changed forever, not by money, but by kindness, determination, and love. And as the city awoke before her eyes, Lila knew that her story wasn't just hers, it belonged to everyone who believed in a better future, and that even the smallest acts of courage could resonate across the world, changing lives forever.